Hello everyone, this is Locko S, and welcome to another episode of the Mission Editor series. In this video we're going to be covering ground units, and we've covered a lot of the AI options before, so there thankfully isn't going to be a whole lot of going over through the route and the waypoint actions and triggered actions and the like. But there are actually quite a few unique things for ground units that we're going to go over. Let's start off with this. Ground units do actually have a category called Fortification. Um, Everything in the Fortification category, I have a lot of mod objects in here, up here, but generally for you as a player, if you don't have any of these are where you're going to be able to find basically fortification units like these barracks that are armed, or these bunkers. If you want to actually have static objects that are like defensive emplacements like bunkers, like these bunkers for like to have machine guns in them, or like outposts. You would find them under fortifications, and these are basically buildings that fire back with machine gun fire. There are no fortification. The only fortification that has anything more than like a machine gun, though, is a World War II package item. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see here. No, I cannot. It's probably buried underneath all of these. But there is actually a World War II style. Probably goes we're under USA. I would have to go to Combined Joint Task Forces. Let's see here. Bunker with fire controls center. There it is. This 15 centimeter naval gun in a bunker. This is a World War II asset. It's supposed to represent Normandy shore defense guns. So giant 150 centimeter naval gun in a bunker here. This is the only quote unquote meaty defense. All the other fortifications that you can set up in game for are leave like these kind of style bunkers, or these kind of style bunkers, where you just basically have men in there with AKs or heavy machine guns just shooting out. So that's something to keep in note for fortifications. They're useful basically if you want to have units pinned down. So you can set up in here. And we'll go over the task while we're out of here. You'll have the same tasks that other groups have. So you'll basically be able to get these to attack ground units that they can see, or attack a civic unit. You can also have these fire at point. Actually, as a good idea, you can actually, if you want to have like a dramatic effect without these actually hurting other units, you can have these machine guns firing at a point like right here. That's basically they're like lighting up the beach in front of the enemy units, sort of giving the illusion of suppressive fire. So you can use fortifications with the fire at point to like basically set the illusion of like suppressive fire, stuff like that. Again, for ground AI, you can also use them as FACAs. So you can use them to. This is how you set. This is how you set up JTACs for ground units. You use the FACA tasking, and I would use FACA engaged group to have more control over what you're having the units engage. So, again, you can have them use that. Designation, you can definitely have laser. Also keep in mind with ground units, for designation for FAC, you do need to have them have line of sight. So you want to place them up high, overlooking the area on the ground, so that they can actually see the targets. Again, there's other ways to do it. I prefer using I prefer using my JTAC script, and it's a way, again, you use the scripting engine in game to set up JTACs that are a little bit more reliable. They're a little less fussy. Also, you can have them attack static objects, stuff like that. But we'll go ahead and cover that in another video. So that's it for fortifications and sort of, and even in general, what ground units have to offer. There's not a whole lot of new commands or things to go over here, or even new options to go over. Everything that's been talked about has been talked about before to death. I will mention under Fortification, you can find under ground unit, under vehicle group for fortifications, you can find this beacon. Here it's a Tachyon, it's a portable Tachyon beacon, and this is the only way to set up fixed Tachyon beacons within the game for ground units. So you can go in here, and this is the only fortification that gives you the activate Tachyon command, and you can actually set up a Tachyon here so that you can actually navigate air units to. So, for instance, Rota International here, if this was a red, well, obviously I would make it a red unit for this if I was doing it for real, but if you wanted Rota International to have a Tachyon beacon, you can go to Vehicle Group, Fortification, Tachyon Beacon, and drop a Tachyon beacon down here, and then set up a Tachyon beacon, and then that way you can actually navigate, have a Tachyon capable aircraft navigate to this airport. You can also use it for a very interesting feature. I believe this was used in Vietnam. I remember there was actually a, I think it was actually even a CIA slash special, I think it was CIA for certain. I wouldn't be surprised if special forces were also involved in protecting and setting up the site, but there was a station sort of behind enemy lines, or at the very least, it was a station that was towards the very front end of the combat area, and it was basically to set. It was basically a Tachyon station in the middle of nowhere. But what you would do is you would use the aircraft would navigate to that Tachyon station, and then use an offset from that station to find their targets. So you can do something very similar in DCS world, where, for instance, if you were doing, if say Tinian and Saipan here were under enemy control, you could say have a mission where you send in a bunch of Hueys to this small island here, have them drop off, say like a group of men, set up a Tachyon beacon here, and then say, okay, your bombing target is, for instance, 21 nautical miles at 35 degrees from this Tachyon station. That's your bombing target on this golf course here. So you can definitely do that in DCS world. You can definitely have Tachyon beacons to airports that don't have them. You can set up. You can have Tachyon beacons to FOBs for other aircraft. You can even use Tachyon beacons to just again set up general offsets and have them like say, hey, your target's at this offset from this beacon. So that's again, it's a real fun real world usage of what they use Tachyon beacons also for. It's not just Tachyons weren't at the time just used for navigating to your home airbase or your home carrier. They were also used for offset bombing. So let's get into actual ground units that fire back and do stuff that can move. And we'll use this golf course here as a fun example. So let's cover armor next. Armor basically covers all like mobile units. There are amphibious units, by the way, in game. So as you can see here, we have an AV7 amphibious APC. You can place it in the water. You can have the APC then go onto land and then do its thing. If you try to put a non-amphibious unit in the water, the game will yell at you. So let's see here. If we have this armored car, obviously it can't go in the ocean. And if we try to place it in the group on the ocean, place ground vehicles on the land. So you have to place ground vehicles on the land, obviously, unless it's a amphibious unit. If you want to see if a unit is amphibious, you just go ahead and just take it and just try to push it into the water. Keep in mind that most ground units can cross very small streams that are found in like the Caucasus map and on the Syria map. While they can do it, there is always a chance that the unit will, or the AI will go dumb, or the game mesh won't play nice, or the game won't play nicely and won't let them cross. It's just safer for AI units to follow the road. Speaking of, you'll notice that we have a type of movement here called off-road. Off-road basically allows you to move anywhere on the ground. You can move through forested areas. It's not super reliable though. I wouldn't recommend having AI do it. I would just keep AI to moving off-road in clear and open areas like this. They can obviously move around trees like this, so like small bushes they don't have problems with. They can move around them on their own. But even then, I would still babysit them just to make certain that there's no risk of them going stupid one day. If there's an update or something in DCS happens where they just decide to crash into it. But definitely, again, keep the units off when you do off-road movements. Again, keep them in like open areas. Go ahead, delete waypoints. On-road forces the AI to move to a road and stay on it. You can also do on-road at the very beginning of a mission. So go ahead, place an ATM down here, have it on-road, so that way it starts on the road, and then if you do, that way you don't have to worry about getting it on the road from the beginning. You can also have on-road multiple waypoints if you want to control its road. So if you want to go the end destination and say here, but you want it to take a specific route, you can place on-road waypoints along the way to force it to go to a certain route. So if we wanted to go instead of this way, if we wanted to use this longer way, we would use the waypoints here. We kind of have to, you will have to play with it a little bit, but you can definitely make it so that it chooses whatever road that you want to go on. Now, if you want to, once you get it on road, if you wanted to get off road, say instead of going all the way over there, you wanted to get off over here. The best way to do it is put a on-road waypoint at the last spot that you want them to be on the road. Place a on-road waypoint next to it, and then you'll have to, from there, change it to an off-road waypoint. So instead of on-road, now we have it off-road, and then we can have it go off-road again. And you can have various combinations of going on-road, off-road, on-road, off-road. It's not a sort of a one-and-done thing. Also, off-road is the generic off-road AI, basically movement type. You can also have a move off-road in a formation. So off-road's a column formation, where they're all like in a line. Line abreast is a line, but they're side to side. I recommend using line abreast for setting up units into a combat formation because it's relatively easy to control, and then that way you have an idea of roughly in what formation they will be when they go line abreast. Again, this is also really good if you want to make certain ground units have line of sight. The majority of the units have good line of sight on the majority of the targets. Cone and V and Diamond are different different types of formations. Cone, I believe, is sort of like an arrow point facing towards the enemy. V is sort of more of a V formation where it looks like an arrow pointing backwards, but it's moving forwards. Diamond is a diamond where it's basically sort of like a square type formation. Echelon left and echelon right, those are basically, you can think of those as diagonal lines. So you could have a group of tanks in echelon right on the enemy's right flank, and then you would basically have a good way. They could move forward in a diagonal line, but still have good line of sight on their target. And then custom, custom is when you want to have either a template here that they follow and move as a group. Or I believe custom can also apply if you start them off in a certain pattern on the ground. You can then use custom to keep them in that formation. For armor, especially again like armor units like an armor in this game applies to like APCs, units with guided tank munitions, IFVs, and main battle tanks. Line and echelon left and right are both my favorites, just because it forms a nice line formation and it gives the AI plenty of, I would say, room for their guns to train on the target, and that way you don't have units blocking each other. Of note, going on to other things of note, you do have trains. They're not super useful in DCS. There's a lot of buggy AI with trains and like how they operate and how the game treats them, so I would kind of ignore them. You can set them up if you want to for decorative purposes, but other than that, I wouldn't really play with these. Unarmored also use the same kind of rules and logic as armored units. Unarmored units' main purposes in DCS, one of the main things you can do with them is use you can use them for resupply. And if we say make this a heavy truck, you kind of see how this is a truck unit. It has this circle around it. This will basically resupply units with ammunition within its range. And this also does apply to player units. If you arrive at an airbase that isn't captured, or you're at a fob, or you're at basically a runway start, or if you're using if you're trying to establish a road base for taking off and short takeoff and landing, like say if you're in a Vigan, you can set up these are one of the trucks you can set up to resupply your aircraft with. But they can also resupply AI units, and that's generally something you can also use for, like, if you want your AI units to have, like, nearly infinite ammunition for a barrage. It won't be. They'll obviously they'll technically be able to resupply infinitely from this one truck, but they'll still have to take a lot of time. It does take a lot of time for the AI to reload its internal stores, so it is theoretically infinite ammunition, but it does take a lot of time for restocking from a truck. But you can have it restocked from a truck, and it'll resupply from it. Refuelers. This is something, again, it's I don't think ground units really have to worry about fuel, but it's something that you can add one of these to a forward operating base to give it fuel. Plenty of other fun things like that. And again, they just in general unarmored targets. They don't have any guns to fire back. Their main purpose is mostly to be targets and to basically simulate supply. I'm quite sure once we get to the supply and logistics update that might be coming with the with DCS's I'm trying to remember the exact term that they used, dynamic campaign. I'm quite sure these will come in more handy and there'll be more rules and logic behind it. So that's it for unarmored vehicles. Artillery can also move around, do its thing. Artillery, the big thing to know about artillery is they can direct fire on units, but your best bet with using artillery is to, you can also have them like set up and like once they're set up in a position, your best bet with artillery is to really just use a triggered action or a waypoint action to do a fire at point command. So you want to go here, fire at point. Fire at point can be used to do indirect fire, fairly easy. So I would recommend using fire at point with artillery style units to get them to actually engage groups of units. And it's also a bit more realistic, just by their nature. Artillery units aren't going to be targeting individual units really. Especially if we don't really have like guided artillery units in game. They're just more like really accurate gun or basically artillery barrages. So in that case, I would use just fire at point commands, and then have the fire at point commands basically encompass the group area, and then have everyone in the group fire like 7 or 8 or 9 rounds, and just basically do an artillery barrage in an area, and then have that take out the enemy, your targets there. So other than that, the last group I want to go over real quickly is infantry. The big thing about infantry to note is that not every country in DCS has infantry. So China, for instance, these are mod units down here. These are all mod units, so China doesn't have infantry of its own. It doesn't have like an AK-47 unit. The UK, for instance, here, their only infantry unit is this World War II infantryman. As you can definitely see, he has Lee Enfield. Nothing modern. USA has a couple of guys, M4 units. It's the M249 light LMG. Manpads are not underneath infantry. Manpads are underneath air defense. I will mention also, I've noted if you are doing a low intensity campaign, I'll probably mention this again once I do more videos based on like how to like design campaigns. Manpads are going to be your primary threat, like a low intensity campaign, and they are a nasty threat to like sprinkle in with your infantry. So if you want to have an infantry squad, you can have a couple of guys with M4s, and then go over to air defense, and then have, say, here we go, yes, one or two guys with with stingers. If he'll load in, there he goes. Infantry is good. Infantry is really good for if you want to have a more forested area. While vehicles can't cross through forest in DCS very well, for obvious reasons, and also real life world reasons, infantry can. So you can be a little more forgiving about having infantry going off the rails, so to speak, to cross forested areas. So we can go ahead, for instance, here, have this be an off-road thing, and the infantry can easily march through this forested area and pop up here. They can then go to, like, instance, over here, go off-road again. They can jump from 2 to 3 off-road. Just go march through here, and all sorts of fun in games with infantry. Infantry, I believe, they are also, you can also have them embark and disembark. So you can have them, I'm not quite sure if it's under perform task. Oh, here it is. You can have them perform task. You can have them embark to a transport. And they will actually board a transport vehicle. And then that transport vehicle will take them to a new area where they can be disembarked. And then they can go into their mission. I want to cover transport in its own video because there's third-party scripting that handles it a little bit better than the in-game methodology, but you can use the in-game methodology if you don't want to use the, I think it's Mist. Mist is the external scripting service that allows you to do this a whole lot easier, but I'm going to use transportation as in whole other video entirely because also, like I previously mentioned, with the upcoming DCS world changes to the dynamic campaign, I don't know if they want to mess around with this transportation system, so we'll cover that when that time comes. And that's really it for ground units. Like I said, if you want ground, you could use, I would, as last couple of reminders, ground units, keep them to the roads for the majority of their trip, and then once they get to their last bit of the journey, you can have them get off-road and then go into a different off-road formation, like line abreast or echelon left and right to get into the firing position. Artillery, make sure you use fire at point, because fire at point is going to be how you get units to fire indirectly at a ground unit. You can also use it to create suppressive fire effects with machine guns. And in general, just have fun. Go crazy with it. Keep in mind that with ground units, also, before I go, if you're setting up difficulty to engaging them, currently splash modeling in DCS isn't very well modeled. I know certain servers like Lima Kilo uses a script specifically to increase the splash damage of dumb bombs. So if you want to have aircraft engaging convoys of vehicles on the ground, and they're sort of like an older vintage, or like for instance the A4E Skyhawk, F5E Tiger II, you definitely want to stick to the unarmed units for those, and like very lightly armed armored units and infantry, because they won't have because they'll be able to be actually taken out with bombs, decently reliably, well, with decent reliability if the players get them near the target. They also tend to work with rockets also a lot better. You can have some very light armor and heat rockets that also tends to seemingly in my experimentations also work, where the heat rockets, if they hit like moderately even armored units like APCs, they'll actually deal damage and kill the unit. Otherwise, you're just gonna have to play around with different armor, different weapons that the AI can play with. It is kind of frustrating that sometimes you'll have a whole bunch of Mark 82s. You'll literally drop a perfect drop bracket. You'll like literally have Mark 82s exploding right next to heavy armor, and it does nothing. So keep that in mind when designing missions. For the moment, I would stick with I would stick with using lightly armored or unarmored units and infantry with most dumb munitions. Guided munitions like laser guided bombs and mavericks are perfect to use against armored targets because they'll be a direct hit, and direct hits in DCS generally kill almost anything, especially if they're a maverick that's a maverick that's designed for armor penetration. So that's it for ground units and a couple of tips for setting them up for use in the game. Until next time, this is LockOS, signing out.